Hey, here we go. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Back for another episode of Learn It Live today. Coming in crystal freaking clear from Merida, Mexico and Sarasota, Florida. What's up? I'm Rymar. This is Joe. And we don't have any opening sequence for today. We're going to jump right in. Converting a site to Clientfirst. Joe, what are we talking about today?
We are going to look at a project that was not built in Clientfirst. It was built on top of continuously without Clientfirst. And now we're going to look at how we can go and convert that website into a Clientfirst neat and organized build.
Yeah.
We've been getting a lot of questions about this. This is a top question. And it's not the easiest question to answer because every site is different. Every build is different, and some sites may qualify more or less than others.
Yeah.
So we'll be going over what to look at and then actually go and make that conversion.
Yeah, and full disclosure, the site we're looking at is a site I built. It's the Open House website. We've talked about the Open House a little bit here over the last few days. If you're not familiar with what is going on with that, we can do a little quick preview here. Hold up. Is that your screen, Joe? That's your screen, right? There we go. Let's go to that screen.
It is.
I got it right here. I was like, hey, it's not scrolling. Okay, so I built this site on the shell of last year's website, and I probably should have started over, but I didn't. And so it's not a full Clientfirst build, but I did follow some of that. And so you're going to see maybe there's some benefits to some of, using some of the system. And I think what we're really going to look at today is how you can maybe assess whether or not it's feasible to switch over to Clientfirst. Whether it's worth making the transition, or do you need to kind of start over from scratch? So before we do that, let's just review this open house. If you didn't know about it, next Thursday, so we're a week away. There's 400 plus people already RSVP'd for this thing. It's going to be sick. Inside of Gather, KP, Vreedy, and Greem are going to be on the panel. Everybody from the community is going to be there. Literally, we don't have to read this all again, but just show up. Come to the site on the day of. This get event updates is going to be enter the event, or we'll change the call to action and just say enter, and it's going to be first come first serve for tickets. So you don't really have to RSVP, just show up at the space and just know that there's a capacity of 500 people in the space. So if that fills up and you're not there, well, you'll miss out. So last other thing we wanted to say is next Tuesday in the description, there's a video ask. Next Tuesday, we're talking all about client Webflow horror stories. And so, yeah, just like we did daily routines this past week, we want to talk about horror stories and where things went wrong and whatnot. So anyway, come in here, click on this video ask, and you'll see an opportunity to either record a video or an audio response about client horror stories, and we'll share some of that during the stream next week. So without any further ado, go ahead, Joe.
With these horror stories, I think there's going to be two things that allow people to experience. First, the idea of just letting it out. Sometimes you hold in all of these feelings about bad things that are happening in your business. You have nobody to talk about these things with. So this is your opportunity to go and share these stories. And then number two, we're going to give feedback and advice on this. That if there is a situation where we think we can give some knowledge to help you address that situation or to make better decisions in the future, we're going to say that. So it's going to be part educational. It's going to be part super fun. I'm excited for this one.
Nice. Okay. So let's jump into it then. What to kind of look for, Joe? We're going to go into Joe's screen here. So he's got the website open. Let's do this real quick and say, what's up? Jesse Shelfer's in the house. Magdalena, hello. Frank, looking forward to learning. What's up? Jay Poucher in the house. Dale Jensen's here. What's up? What's up? Eric Freeland, Ezekiel, Michael Collins, Aida, Christopher. Ooh, what's up, everybody? Eric Mueller's in the house. Daniel, what's up? Owana, Tanette. I see some real familiar faces. Hope to see you all at the open house. Tom, hello from Norway. Hello indeed. Maria, Design Wisdom, and Fazlu, all here in the house. So welcome, and let's get to it. Yeah, let's just jump right in here, Joe.
Cool. So the first thing you have to do when you're considering a build in Clientfirst, transferring an old build into Clientfirst, is to understand how this current build is. I like to think of it as it needs to be close to Clientfirst to start making that conversion. If it follows a completely different naming convention, we're talking it's just a different mindset, making that change to Clientfirst could be difficult. So on first look, I'm starting to see already a little bit of Clientfirst. You know what? I actually got into this a little too quick. Let me back up a second and give a little bit of context into why
Mm,
the build is like this right now. This is super important. This was originally the 2020 website. And as you can see, this was last year's event. And Reimar had the decision to either start a new project or to just build in the same project, right? We already have the domain connected. We have the form set up. We have some of the base structure set up. And Reimar went with building in the same project. But as you can see, the site is fairly different. This is not like a new page in the previous site. This is a brand new thing. So looking back on it, Reimar said he should have just built it a new site. So
100%.
don't always look to go and convert. There is a very good opportunity and chance that just starting from scratch is actually going to take less time and lead to a more organized build.
Yeah.
So Reimar, do you want to say anything about that? How was that experience?
Yeah, I probably, looking back, I should have just started from scratch. I should have gone and cloned the client first thing and dumped everything we did on the last one, or maybe use the extension to clear all the styles and just start with new styles and clear all those. But then I didn't want to lose every, like the other page. I thought maybe we could archive the page and you could have like a historical record of like one site, the other site, which is maybe even more reason to do it as a separate build or something. I don't really know. It was mostly I was in a hurry. I knew I was going to try to use some client first, but that I'd get scrappy with some of the classes and probably have to like combo it up or modify something. And so, yeah, there were pieces of it that went okay. And then there were pieces that, again, if I had to do it all over, I'd probably rather have just started from scratch.
Right. And that is not a bad thing. That could be a very good thing.
Yeah.
Also, it was a quick build, right? You built it in one night. Just, you had to have it live by the next day for a show. So, yeah, but between all those things, the new build could have been easier.
Yeah.
But
The other
the
thing is,
2020, yeah,
I was gonna say this was also the first time I played with the fluid responsive, and that was interesting to play and experiment with too. So
nice. And the fluid responsive will work on any build that's in REMS,
right.
not just client first naming. And it should be noted that the 2020 was not client first.
Not
We
at
didn't
all.
have client first when 2020 launched.
And I wasn't even,
And
I was just building scrappy style still. I was building like Reimar style, right? Like I thought I was organized. I had some level of organization stuff. I mean, you can go in there and look, but I was still using like lots of combo classes. I wasn't super confident with global styles. I mean, this is just a year ago too, right? This is, yeah. Right. It just shows the progression you can make over some time.
yeah. And with all of this, we may be thinking, well, why don't you just start a new build right now? We're actually going to look at how this is still a good site to convert. That the original naming convention and what we're going to look at in home is not that far from client first. It's not client first, but it's not a completely different concept. And also to keep in mind, I'll bring up this question from Hans. Hans, nice to see you here. Does the size of the site and the pages make a difference in the decision to convert? Absolutely yes. If you're working with a 10, 12, 20 page site, even maybe a 5 or 6 page site, this could be a lot of work. This happens to be a 1-page landing page, and it's going to convert well because it's 1 page. But if this was a 20-page build, if we had plans to, if it was a scaled out site, probably wouldn't do it. So size is really, really important here.
Yeah.
Okay, now I think we're ready to get in. The context has been set.
And this was
Yeah.
kind of a funky design in the context that it has all these little blobby shapes, and the blobby shapes are kind of like anchored to different parts of the screen. And so like getting this full thing responsive, and Joe's super zoomed in here, just FYI, so y'all know, like it's kind of like just packed up a little bit in there. So if you go to global-meetup, .webflow.io, you can see kind of like it in its full dimension. But yeah, that hero section, that top hero section, to figure out how to make that like responsive and still maintain everything, like that took me a little time to struggle with, especially when I was getting into the fluid responsive stuff.
Nice. Okay, let's get in this. The first thing I'm going to note is how the naming has some relation to client first. When I start opening this up, I see sections. They're not named the way that we do our sections. This one is. This one is. These sections are not. But it's close, right? We have these section wrappers, and we have a container wrapper. This is also close. This is kind of like our container small, medium, and large. And as we keep going in, we see some really bad things. We see some really bad things here, but that's okay. We're going to fix it.
Oh, I feel like I'm getting undressed publicly here, y'all. Just so you know, if you see me just turn bright red, I'm like my Webflow build's just getting naked in front of everybody. No big deal.
We have this align center. We're going to use our text utility classes with that. And we have a spacing system. It's not client first, but it is a spacing system that we're actually going to be able to convert very easily. It's a different type of spacing system, right? This is not wrapped. We don't have these elements wrapped inside, but instead they provide some height and they provide some space. So the spacing system is there. It's of such a similar concept, but we're going to be able to easily convert that.
Yeah, and let me explain here too, because I knew that the global sizing was something that, first of all, I'm not 100% proficient with it. So even if I was using the proper global sizing, and I also was like copying and pasting and using certain things from before, and I didn't want to have to worry about like, oh shit, if I adjust the global margin on this heading, I'm going to change it on the other page. And so like that's why I just threw some gaps in there like that. But yeah, I'm sure lots of people do little hacky things like this all the time. This is one of the things in Webflow where like things can become totally crazy. It's that, you know, you can make things work a million different ways. So let's just keep what do they call it? Roast it. Let's roast the build, y'all.
Yeah, you're gonna be roasted.
That's right.
Yeah, and I should also note that this is not wrong. I'm not saying that this is like not the way to do it. Just it's not client first, so we convert it. As we go on here, we see some things that we'll probably rename here. We usually don't like to use just a word like grid here. We'll do some renaming. That's okay. One thing that I did see is this stacked class section. Yeah, the stacked class section is not necessarily a problem. It's a problem for client first because in client first, we don't stack. And the reason is it's hard to manage the project. And we believe that picking apart the styles in each layer of this class could be difficult, especially when changing it and making a conversion. So how do we create this into client first? There's not a lot of uses of this. This was actually from the 2020 page. Just an exact copy, and look, Rymar just did probably what I would do in this exact instance. This was 2. Rymar went and said, now we have 3. And it has a new style on top.
Right.
But it's still deep nested in this long line of combo classes. So I've come to the conclusion, if your site has a whole bunch of these, it's going to be hard to convert to client first. So if you're looking through your project and like a lot of the elements on the page are stack classes on top of utility classes, right? This section seems like a sort of utility class in a sense that every section has it. We have the hero, we have this flex center vertical. If everything is stacked on these utilities, it will be a tough thing to do. And you know what? I think if it actually had this on this page, I would not do it. It would just be too difficult of a job. But really, when you click through this, there's not much class stacking. You know, this is fine, of course, a single class stack, but we don't see any deep class stacking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I've learned a lot over time. I used to do tons of combo classes, especially when I was trying to work inside of like some utility frameworks. And I would just like, okay, this plus this and plus this. But then I'd get into a spot where I'm like, oh, but I need to modify just a little bit of this. And now you have the combo class. You're not using the utility structure anymore. You're like making a whole new class with that string. And so then I'd be on another page and I'd accidentally create that combo and I'd start editing that, or I'd make an adjustment to that and not realize why it was affecting other things. And so, yeah, maybe it's not client first now, but at least I know, hey, try to build classes that you're going to reuse globally. try to like, cycle through some of this stuff specifically. And I am learning to use the full client first naming convention on all of this stuff. I just don't build as much as I used to anymore. And so it's not something that like clients aren't, like I'm never handing off a site to a client. Right. Anything I build nowadays, it's going to be something that we're going to use either for a little splash page, a little landing page, or it's something I'm just playing around with, And so I think the end use also, dictates the level of care you need to use in this stuff. But anyway, it's good to learn best practices all the way through. I'm just trying to defend my ego here, y'all. Okay, just relax.
It's okay. You know what? I think it would be a problem. I think we could roast you more if this couldn't be converted, right? If we went on the site and I'm like, Reimar, what the hell did you do? We can't even make this client first. That's when you get the ultimate roast.
Yeah.
But you're just at a mid roast right now.
I'd be pretty embarrassed if like you came back and you were like, yeah, we just can't. Like it's not gonna. Tanet's asking a quick question here. Can we give a definition of a utility class again?
Yes. Tanet, we are working on a lot of updated docs with Clientfirst, and it super defines this topic right here. And I'll tell you exactly what our new official definition of utility class is. A utility class is a class that holds a set of CSS properties to manage that style globally. For example, background red. This is a utility class. It is holding background color :red. And this is this CSS property that we can apply anywhere, and we can change it. We could change this to background blue, change the hex value, and now this is globally managed, this utility class. Tanet, if you have another question on top of that, let me know. There's a lot of opportunities to explain it throughout the show, so I can continue talking about it.
Nice. Yeah, Daniel, love the flex center class. Reminds me of naming design files like very final. Yeah. And Ezekiel, thanks for the support. I'm not really that salty. It's okay. We can carry on. Let the roast continue. I'm pretty good with the self-deprecating humor. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So we're ready to go. If you have more questions about what to look out for, things that we were just talking about, please ask that. We'll address it during the show. But now we are actually we are ready to make edits to this build. All right. The first thing we are going to do is start to move over some of our key classes in Clientfirst. Reimar, do you have a question?
I was going to say, quick question. We're on a copy of this site now, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
This is a copy of the site.
So if y'all come and see it in the future and see it's still not client first, we just don't want to break anything. It's all good. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
I'm here on the Clientfirst clonable page in the Webflow showcase, and I'm going to go and clone this fresh. And I'm going to get utility classes from this project. So Tanet, I'm going to go in here, and the first thing I'm going to do is get my utility classes of page wrapper, main wrapper, and and padding, and probably a container. Yeah. These are utility classes. They hold some style. They hold some type of padding. This is a perfect example that can be used globally across the project. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, and I will make sure I remove this message. I don't want it for this. We have our text medium. We don't need anything else here. I want to also move over our container classes. And you know what? Now that I'm doing this, we should probably have a little conversion copy paste thing that if you're doing this, you should just be able to paste exactly what I'm doing here. These are some of the most important ones. That's why I'm starting here. We have our container small, medium, and large. These are going to dictate the container max width of this new project. I will not hold the global styles for now. And yeah, this is what I want to get started with. This is our core structure in Clientfirst. So I'll go and give that a copy, and I'm going to go and paste it at the bottom of this page. I will also see if there's other classes that I want to grab here. I don't need this. You know what? I think I'll take these heading classes. I'm going to keep this in a div block. Take the headings in case we need them. Oop, that did not copy to clipboard. Hold on a sec. I removed the class here so I don't have any class problems when I go to copy this in. So now I have here all my beautiful heading classes. Also an important one. We want to keep our text as unified as possible. This one also, do we have classes here? No, this is all at the tag level. No problem. Okay, we'll take the text classes here. We have our text size medium, our text size large, text size regular, and some of these really nice text elements, text stylings. I'll go copy it. Oh, I need to select the div. Select this div here. So we have our text. And I'm just going to take these next two. That's it. The reason why I'm going one by one is this is a one-page site. I'm not just going to copy and paste the entire style sheet. I'm just taking what I think that I need to make this organized and to have unified text.
And just to clarify, what you're doing is you're just dropping all of these styles into like a shared div that then you copy and paste over so that it brings all of the styles named into the new project or into the project that we're converting. So that then you have all, because the one of the benefits of Clientfirst is that once you start understanding these names, you get used to writing them and you get used to just calling them as like, so instead of going over to the styles panel, you just know, hey, I type in this style or whatever thing that I have predefined, right? And that's kind of what the transfer you're making here is. I just want to help clarify for folks watching.
Yes, exactly. Just taking the most important pieces. The most important pieces are core page structure, the text, and the spacing. So what I took was the core structure. These are all text classes. And now we're going to get the spacing classes. And actually in the docs update, it specifically talks about this idea of the most important parts of Clientfirst. You'll see that we have our recommended global classes on the intro page. And that's exactly what I'm taking here. And it's why it's so important. We want to keep these unified in the project. And when we want to take spacing, we do not want to copy paste it. We have a shortcut to go and do this. So I'm going to go to Finsweet extension into Clientfirst, and I will add the spacing system. I'm going to add the entire spacing system to this one. It's fairly lightweight. There's just not a lot of classes here. So I like to do padding as well. And there we go. Now on the bottom of this page, we'll have all of our margin classes and all of our padding classes. And to answer Jay's question, Jay says, Joe, make a core structure button or something. And Jay, we actually do have that here in Clientfirst, add core page structure. The thing is, you need to have Clientfirst on your project in order for us to do that. So if I tried to do that before all of these steps, it actually would have given me an error message. We found that we didn't want to create new styles, new classes on the project. We just wanted to reuse what's already there. So there we go. We have this ready for us. Perfect.
Maria's asking why not in the style guide here. I'm not sure. Maria, are you saying why not bring the whole style guide over? Or I'm not sure if you can maybe expand on that question.
Yeah, sure. Why not the whole style guide? You know what? I probably could have done that. The reason I didn't do that is because I didn't want to take the spacing classes. Where are the spacing classes? You know what? Yeah, I could have done that. That's absolutely correct. I could have copied this whole thing over. One thing that I didn't want to happen was to run into any naming collisions. I don't know what's on this project. I did a quick look at it. I don't know. I don't want to run into naming problems and renaming. And we didn't run into any of it. Copying a whole thing, copying all of this, maybe we have something in here that's called max width small, and this overwrites. So I like to do it one by one, make sure everything works. But you're right, Maria. I could have absolutely done this.
And she's saying, nope, why you copy in the home page? But I'm not sure what, I'm still not sure what she means by that, to be honest.
Okay.
So,
yeah, Maria,
use more words, please. Today is your smart day.
One thing we don't want is to take the spacing and direction classes from here. We have a special way to do that, and we just saw that.
Yep. And that was through the
Okay.
extension, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question from Bashar. Hey Joe, how does the spacing work? I tried making this type of spacing by custom, but I end up modifying the combo classes.
I do not understand that question. Bashar, do you mean that you apply the spacing, but then you accidentally create new combo classes from them? I don't understand.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's continue with this.
Okay,
And
let's
please
do it.
continue to ask questions. We'll try to get to it. Now we're going to get into the renaming. We have Clientfirst over in the project here. I've just added everything to a div block, and I'm going to now go and add it to its own page just to maintain these styles. We don't want them removed in the project if we clear styles. So I'll create a new page, Clientfirst styles, and here we go.
Yeah, I'm not sure why your screen keeps jumping off here. It keeps jumping away from your screen to mine. So sorry, folks. That's happened a couple times, or it just jumped off your screen there.
Okay, let me know if it happens again.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, now we have our page wrapper, our Clientfirst page wrapper ready to go here. And I'm now going to create this as this first item here. We can see that we have something similar. It's called page wrap, but it's not our page wrapper in Clientfirst. So what we're going to do with this is give it a rename. We're going to not give it a rename. We just have the overflow hidden. So I'm just going to go and apply our page wrapper and overflow hidden. I do like that method. Then we want to make sure that we have our nav structure, our footer structure, and our main wrapper in place. So I'll go and add this main wrapper to the page here. I'll go and do main wrapper, and we are in the main wrapper. If I have the main wrapper here, we're going to take a nav component, which we do not have. This is a nav list site, so we're not going to have the nav in there. We're going to separate the footer. This footer will be separated, so we'll go ahead and do that. This is not needed. This is our footer.
That's our super stacked footer, super combo stacked.
Yep, perfect. So I'm going to go and drag these into the main wrapper. The main wrapper is all about your main website content. Normally the nav would go on top of it. The footer would go under it. Now let's just start here. This is what I'm going to take from. I think I can use Finsweet extension right here. I think this is actually a really good use case. We're going to combine all of these classes and we're going to create a brand new class from it. I've actually never used this live or in production, so let us see. Okay, merge combo classes. We are going to merge this to our footer component. We're only going to create the class because this may influence our previous page, the 2020, which we don't want to destroy. So I'm going to merge this. Now, this would be a very difficult and time-consuming process if you had to do this for every element, right? This was really useful for this one time. I have this worked. Whoops. Did not work.
Alex, you're fired.
Alex is done.
It's over. It's over for him. He's got no future here.
Let's see.
You can send it. That's the only one.
Yeah, okay. New class name.
It looks like maybe it created it, but I wonder if it didn't replace it down there. Maybe because it
Ah,
wasn't clicked to replace it on the
yeah,
home page.
that's
It probably just created the class, but didn't actually replace it.
yep. Alex is now back on the team.
All right, you're rehired, Alex. It's good. It's okay.
Look,
We're
I
back.
just used it wrong. Okay, so now actually let me go. I'm not going to clear classes right now. I'm just going to keep this so we have it. I've just now given this our primary name of whatever. Okay. I'm just going to do this for right now. I don't want to deal with clearing styles. The point is we have just created a new class here with the client first naming convention. And what we're going to do is continue going through this to start to add any classes that we need to make sure that this footer is now going to be client first. And it's going to start with this. This is very not client first. So what we're going to do is rename this as a footer content. And inside, we're going to, if this is a footer link, we're going to rename this with the underscore footer link. Now, as you can see, we have this underscore system going. All of these are in the same family of component. And let's see, I go copyright. Interesting. What are we going to do with this class? This may only be a footer item. I want to say that this, if it's copyright, we can do that. So I'm going to call it a footer icon copyright. Cool.
Yeah. So as people can see here, it's not always about, like moving everything around, or not being able to use custom styles. It's really just about how you organize the naming of all this. And obviously we're seeing a hodgepodge of site here. I'm sure this footer was probably copied from some other site that uses this footer. I doubt this was rebuilt custom for this site, and so you can see these things probably just get handed off, and then each person does their own little thing to it. But now we're kind of consolidating that, but no styles are changing. You're just kind of consolidating the naming and having some kind of schema to the actual naming here.
And I'm going to do that same thing here. So now I've moved my text classes in. This is something that I want. And I'm now going to call this text size a medium. Medium looks about right there. A little bit smaller, but we can adjust that value later. We have our text size medium. Great, now we're getting client first. Here we have the same thing. We'll follow a similar naming convention, not the Lottie muscle. We'll copy this footer icon copyright, and we will go and name it here footer, and this will be, should have just typed this, footer FS logo. There we go. So this is a big part of Client First, just like Reimar said, just having the organization showing that this is on the site for this footer. This is what it exists for. And we probably don't even need this here. We can also go and remove things. So this, I think this is a prime example. I'll give this a 6 rem. I'm going to copy these same styles, 0.1 rem with a rem converted value on the side. So rem here, and do a 0.25. Oh no, 0.5 is what we're working with, 0.5 rem. Now let's go and remove this layer. Clean up, nice. So we have our footer class. We have our footer class. And now we have this really nice, neat, and organized footer element, footer component.
Let me ask this question, Joe. In that instance right there where you renamed the footer icon, what if that's not what if it's just the Lottie muscle and maybe it's in other places? Would you still call it footer here, or would you just leave it as Lottie muscle as a global, thing?
Sure. So if it was a global thing, something that I would consider is calling it like icon. Maybe you have several icons throughout the site that can stay in a folder. As we are working on folders and as we release this, we're starting to make you think about this underscore as a folder, not just a component. It can be a component, but it could also be a folder. So here, this Lottie muscle can be in the icon folder
Got
if
it.
it's part of a series of icons. It could be in a Lottie folder. Maybe there's a lot of Lottie things on here, and it's the Lottie underscore muscle.
Right. Nice. Okay. So that makes sense. And people don't maybe know about folders. But can we show them a sneak peek?
We can.
Do you have
Yeah.
it? Do you have it here that you could just kind of show them a glimpse of what that even means?
Yeah.
And then we got a couple
What's the
questions we'll
best
jump
way to
into
do
here
this?
too.
Great. What do I show here? Oh, I know. I think I'm going to show a Figma file. While I'm looking, let's read those questions. I can multitask here.
Okay, so let's see. We can take this one from Gabriel. Let's do this thing. What are the benefits of using REM for padding and margin? Primarily, you got the responsiveness, being able to use the fluid responsive. You also have accessibility, so it respects like zoom and different things. Joe, am I missing anything there? REMs for padding and margin?
Yes, the REMs for padding and margin can help adjust the size of the space around the text. So let's say you have your text in REM and all of your spacing in pixels. As your REM adjusts, the pixels are not going to adjust at the same rate. So if a user changes their browser settings, you could have text that is just not in the right proportion to that inner padding. So that's why we like to do everything REM. It's like the whole site is in one system that can be fully managed by settings and preferences.
Yeah. And again, that conversion from pixels to REMs is something that's available in the browser extension where with one click you can convert everything. It is best to get used to working in REMs. And it's actually, I found it a little better because that step increase, that quarter step, half step, full step, as opposed to remembering okay, am I 16 pixels for my spacing or is it 18 or was I 32 on this thing or, instead of it's easy, it has been easier. And again, I'm not proficient all the way with using REMs on everything, but learning that has helped me kind of maintain some consistency because it does give you some easier steps to look at for that sizing.
Nice.
All right. So do we have
any other questions?
There are a few. Let's see. I got a question. When cloning a section from a Finsweet template, Webflow changes the class names to prevent conflicts. Is there a faster way to convert those classes, example, page padding 2 to page dash padding?
You know what, Joseph? We have had talks about fixing some of those conflicts through Finsweet extension. It's not an easy task. It's on our longer term roadmap. When we release folders, we're going to give you a new way to quickly rename entire sets of elements. So what you can do is actually rename an entire component from a template before you go and copy it into your site. So this, yeah, I think that this flow is going to either be fixed or complete or much more improved once we release folders, which is coming within the month.
Nice. Yeah, so we want to get to that little, let's show a little sneaky peeky for the folks who are hanging strong here. Yeah. And y'all better throw some likes up, damn it. We're going to show you some sneak peeks here, okay? Let's do it. Let's get YouTube some good signals here.
Folders. Okay. These are just static views of what it will very likely look like. And what this is a virtual folder structure inside your project. So we can have a home folder and inside nest very specific classes to the home. We can have a home testimonials folder and we can list all of our classes inside the home testimonials folder. And we have all of these options. There's no official right and wrong way to do folders. It's truly up to you. Just like the idea of organizing folders on your computer, right? There's no official way to have folders on your computer based on the amount of files you have, based on what programs you use, based on your workflow, you can actually create your own folder structure. And that's the idea here. This has full backwards compatibility. This is kind of like a 2.0, but this does not mean that old client-first projects are no longer client-first. It's all the same rules. We just now have this additional feature with the addition of another underscore. Every underscore creates a folder. So if we follow exactly what we're doing here, we have this footer underscore. We are actually putting these classes inside the footer folder. And when we click on that footer folder, we're going to see everything. And also, we still have our beautiful search. Look at this. We have our footer class right here. We'll clean these up, and they'll all be searchable. So that's why we have the underscore. With the classes, we are automatically folder ready if we do client first correctly, and now we can even nest a folder inside. Any questions?
Yeah, no, just people's, like, let's see what it says here. Patrick Foley, holy moly, this is so exciting for my OCD, especially when you start realizing you can rename folders. And as you rename the folders using the extension, it'll go back and change all the class names. So doing updates and changes like we were doing to some of those components, and you want to do it globally, that's just going to like matriculate all the way through. So that's super cool. Christopher Coleman saying, let's go. Omkar throwing some flames at it. Yeah, nice. Looking forward to it. Let's see. Eric Mueller, any updates on the Client First Attributes Bootcamp? Is that still happening? Yes, we will have more about that. Those boot camps are happening, and yeah, things are under works on that. So let's see. Do you have to keep downloading the Chrome extension every time something new is rolled out, or is it done automatically? Nope, it should be updated. It should update as you go.
Yep. And to what Reimar said, you can update the entire folder name. So let's say this is no longer the testimonials, right? It was the testimonials, but now it's turned into case studies. Nobody wants to go through and rename every single one of those. So you can rename the folder, and everything within the folder gets that change within the single change of the folder. So Joseph, this would be a great way to take things from the template and then go and bring it to your primary build already named perfectly based on your project.
Bingo, bango. That's how we do it.
Nice. All right, so let's continue. We are now qualifying this for folders. I'm telling you, if we opened up this site with the virtual folders, it would look like a mess. It wouldn't fit right. So I think when we release folders, it will be a good way for people to check their work. If you have a really neat folder structure right when you open it up, you're probably doing everything very well. If not, you probably need to go back and check out the docs. Okay, so let's go and do this. Let's do our first change of container here. I'm going to definitely remove all of this. We're not going to create a new combo class because we want to use our container system. So we have some index, vertical center, don't need. Okay, looks like we didn't even really need too much. Let's do a container. I want to think this would be a small maybe. I don't know. It looks like we also need some z-index. That's what looked like something changed there. I wanted to say it was a 5. Cool. So there we go. Now we are using our container system, and this may need to update, but yeah, we just changed this footer to client first. Oh, let me get this. All right, Reimar, let me ask, is this something that's recurring on the site, or is this specific to the footer?
I think that might be scroll down and see if the image is in there. I think if you scroll down on the styles panel, on the
styles
right,
panel, yeah,
scroll down to see if I have a background on there. Yeah, that's our background. So that's probably like absolute, just set to stretch the whole canvas or something, set to cover.
And that's used throughout.
I think it's
page.
just that. No, it's just that one element.
Okay, perfect. So then in that case, we're going to rename this as the footer background wrapper. And also, if we find, as we're going through, if we find, hey, this was actually not specific to the footer, we can just change it. Don't sit there trying to figure out the name. Just do it and be ready to pivot if needed. Okay, great. So we're putting in our core structure. We have this, we have this, we have this. We don't have page padding. Let's go and do that. This doesn't really need it on desktop, but I bet you we're going to want it on mobile. So instead of going and applying this at the component level, we don't need to do this. And the reason is we want to keep our unified spacing so that when we do go to mobile and we do experience all of the paddings, they're all going to be equal throughout the page. So we can keep this. There's no problem with that. But what I'm going to do is put a page padding. And by keeping this padding at the page level, what we're able to do is truly make this a global setting. If we do it everywhere, this will update site-wide. Desktop, tablet, mobile. We'll never have to go through and align everything up again. And there we go. This is looking really nice. We don't need this. Okay. Footer done. Love it. And I think I can get rid of this. We're now deep into this system. Great. Let's now go and just start renaming the sections. Something that I really, really like is sections that explain what that section is so we know, hey, this is the header. This is the subscribe. This is the testimonials. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Instead of the section new hero, we're going to get rid of this section. See, hero, meetups, new hero, white background. I don't see any consistency. If there was some consistency, like it was all about background changes or it was all about page specific combos, maybe we keep it, but it seems a bit random now. So we're not going to keep it. So the thing I'll do on this first one is, again, open up Finsweet extension, and we will not do that. We'll go into the merge combo classes. And the new class name will be section header. It's the header section. Replace and merge. Bam.
Nice. And while that's happening, Penny's asking a question about that footer background. Why would I not put that background image on the footer component? I'm trying to think of, I think it might have to do with the way it's fixed and the way I have the thing coming up over it. I needed that background to be separate and kind of like static. And I wanted a container to stay in the regular flow. So I wanted the content to stay in kind of the flow of the site, but I wanted that separate background to kind of remove itself and go behind and then stay sticky, or stay fixed, I mean. So I think that's why I did that decision.
Nice. Totally. And you know, if you can make it work on the element, that's okay also. And that's totally up to you.
Yeah, and I think that bottom section was also something that I brought over from the other site. That was one of the ones that had that the 3 or 4 combo class stacked on it. And so it might have also been one of those things where when I brought it over, there was something else there, and I just said, screw it, I'm going to throw an absolute div in the back and stick, it could be a shortcut. I don't know. So again, there's lots of ways to do some of this stuff in Webflow. So I'd have to go back into my mindset right in that moment and think about why I decided that way. But you could probably figure it out another way too, and that would probably be just as effective.
Nice. Great. Okay, next we see a section fixed footer. This, I'm not going to change the name of this. I'm just going to drag it down. It's fixed on the page. We don't need it up in this content. At first glance, it confused me. I thought it was this section. So we just want to logically order.
Yeah, what is that section, huh? What's in there?
It's this.
Oh, it's the little call to action bar at the bottom there.
Yeah. And we can even better name that. We probably should have known what this was just from reading the name. Mm-hmm. So I'll go and rename this section CTA footer or CTA fixed, right? This is now much more clear to us what this is all about. Okay, and let's just jump right into this. We have it open. So let's go into here, and we're not going to use fixed footer. This was named correctly based on the section name, right? We had section fixed footer, so this would be our fixed footer component. We can even call this a fixed footer component. This is not really a section now that I'm looking at this, right? Not everything has to be a section. Section's about organization. So this, I want to call this the CTA fixed component. There we go. And I like to copy the little prefix right here, copy the prefix. And now we're going to go and add this to the, I hate when that happens, left side. And we will call this the right side.
Interesting that it's giving that current flag. I wonder, because you're in that section there. I always worry about when I see that current marker that it's like an override style, that it's not like actually defaulting the class and whatever change. Like, even though you're just renaming it there, which wouldn't have a difference, but if you were applying a style there, just for anybody watching, if you see that current tab, you probably want to get away from that or change the link while you're adjusting that, or adjust it somewhere else, because you'll do that on certain links and then go to a different page and was like, where the hell are my styles? And realize that unless you're on that current element or on that page or in that, you're not going to get that style to show up. So just a little cheat code if y'all don't know about that.
And we have renamed this. We're not going to rename button. Button is properly named. That's what we use in Clientfirst. And now, Maria, I have an actual use case of overriding properties. If we were to copy the entire style guide, we would have run into a collision. Button. We have a button class in the project. So that, I don't want that. And imagine that happens like 2, 3, 4 times. And now you kind of lose track of what's from the build and what was added and renamed.
Yeah.
So that's why I went one by one. But again, you can copy the whole thing over.
And this is where, when you start thinking about like what specifically to look for when you're looking at a site, if you're going into a site and it's like button 1 outline, button 2 dark, or button blue, and you start seeing all this, like a lot of people treat Webflow classes like folder layers names in like a Photoshop or a Figma or something like that, where they're just like, I just got to give it a unique identifying name, and then I set my styles, and then bingo bango, I get my site to work. And then they don't realize why they have like 10,000 classes on a 2-page project or something, a 3-page project. So just lots of stuff to think about. This is what gives Webflow the complexity, right? This is what sets it free. But like all this stuff and keeping this stuff in mind while you build is like where it gets hard, right? This is the visual, actual software development. Like you're actually writing front end code here,
Yeah. And okay, I think we can continue. Any more questions?
Yep.
Okay.
Some love from John. Yeah, just a couple people saying, we're all good to go.
So now we have a decision to make. We're going to talk about an educated decision of, do we try to keep unified styles for this section and this section? They're similar, but they're not the same. You could see first, they're switched, right? That's the first difference. Number 2, we have some variations. So this one has a top combo class, where this one does not have a top combo class. This one's a gray div wrap. This is a div wrap with a combo class of 2, which is applying what seems to be important padding.
I flipped the padding.
And that's fine. Yeah, exactly. So it needs the combo class. So we need to think through a decision. Do we try to keep these elements, these sections, unified under the same class structure? Or do we make them section specific? I think we should make them section specific for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's a small site. There's 2 instances of these. If this was a recurring element across a 10-page website, that's a completely different answer. Of course, we want to keep these unified. But the reality is updating these 2 little instances, changing the color blue in 2 spots, changing the margin top and bottom in 2 spots is just not a big ask. We get to totally use our own styles and customizations, and when we get to mobile, we don't have to be locked in the same system that we have for up here. So we're going to go custom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, if I was probably taking a little bit more thought when I built this, I might have, instead of using that button there, if you close your navigator and you see the little yellow powered by community, and then if you go to the other one on the bottom, it's like an actual button. And I think it had something to do with the spacing and the overlap. When I moved one section to the other side, there was a fatter spacing, so like I probably could have made that an element in a fixed, in a flex grid and just had like 3 wide vertically. But I don't know. Again, I don't remember why I made some of these decisions when we build, but that's like floating absolute on relative to that gray section. So that little yellow vertical thing on both sides is kind of like a floating, and that then I use the padding to hack it over to the edge, to give it the extra gap, the width of that space.
Okay. Should we keep that?
I don't know.
Well, we can do that. Let's just start. We'll make the decision as we're going. But we are going to make it custom. So we're going to give this section a name, right? One page site, simple landing page. Let's name this section and give anything custom to this section that name. All right. Let's go and call this the I want to call it the Vlad section, but that just doesn't, I don't know if that's a proper representation of this. Maybe updates.
Yeah, I called it main
think that's
CTA
good?
because it's like the main call to action. That's why the main
Okay.
CTA name was there.
Okay. All right, let's go main CTA. So what I'm going to do here is rename this section main CTA, and good and good. Now we're going to create a copy of this. We'll just duplicate it here. And this is going to be the main CTA. And let's call this the content. I sometimes it's not, you don't come up with the best name for something right away. I like to just choose something. I was kind of not sure what to call it. Don't sit there for 2 minutes thinking about it. Just call it something. And as you're reviewing the site later, you can make that change if you need to. So let's call this the same thing here. I'm just going to rename this class. I don't think this needs a rebuild at all.
Yeah, and Pablo's
Let's
asking.
call it the main CTA. Yeah.
Pablo's asking a question here. Hey guys, if you're giving each section a unique class, why don't you just add the padding to each section rather than using the padding div? And the answer to that is so that you can then adjust the padding across all of those sections at once. So that would be the global styling there, the global spacing there. Did I miss that, Joe? Or
I don't know if I completely understand,
so
but I'll let Pablo. I think you're saying, like, why wouldn't you keep the spacing like this? We are going to keep the spacing like this. We're not going to be using our padding spacing to create space like this. That is not what it's intended for. We use our utility spacing classes to usually space things apart from each other. So maybe inside of a top of a section, we can apply just padding top, but we wouldn't apply padding all the way across this. You're right. We have a custom class, so we're going to take advantage of that.
Nice. Yeah, the global style is going to be for those elements that you do want to make sure that as you update it across the board, it's going to be consistent. Otherwise, Clientfirst is about the flexibility to use those custom classes when you need them.
And squares 2. Where's squares 1?
Squares 1's in the header up in the top there, I think.
Okay.
And these are just because they're all just absolute floating shapes. I just gave them all unique classes and made them absolute to a corner of a div and then pushed them, with the positioning.
Nice. Great. Okay. So I am going to...
This could be like main CTA squares or something like that, as opposed to...
In CTA. Just squares here. We have the
Mm-hmm.
reference. We know what this is for. We don't have to say where is this in the site. We know it's in the main CTA. Here we go. We have the main CTA highlight. We have a text block. We don't want this. We'll usually not want auto name. And this seems like it's
because of it's because of the rotate.
Yep.
So maybe vertical text would be a better class for that.
We're just going to rename it to the main CTA. Great. Okay, we've renamed that nicely. Good. Flex vertical center. I don't like this. In Clientfirst, we usually don't want to create this type of structure. We can. If you have this really down and you're using it in a very organized way, it could work. But this is not part of the Clientfirst specs. Because what happens when I need a customization here? We don't have any combos listed, but when I get to this, what happens when one instance needs this, and one instance needs this, and one instance needs this? Then we have all of these combo classes on top, and it can become very difficult to manage, especially if you have a lot of customizations. So what may seem easy in desktop may not be as easy to manage as you start customizing tablet and mobile. And for that reason, we like to go and give that a custom class. So I actually want to call this the updates content, and I'm going to call this the updates box. And we'll call this the updates box, and we'll call this the Vlad box, or the let's say feature box. We don't want to get too specific into content. We want to be able to duplicate this for next year and just swap out the content. And who knows, Vlad may not be there next year. So we'll get to that, but first, let's go, and I'm just going to duplicate this class. And we're going to call this what we just copied, main CTA updates content. And there we go. We have our content. Now, normally, I'm not going to do this here, but normally, if I was going to convert a project to Clientfirst, I would want to remove all of these. We don't want any margin top or bottom values to our heading classes, because it's not always going to be 10. It may need to be more or less. And that's why we use either our utility spacing wrappers or apply it to a custom class.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to change it now, but that's what you should do if you're making this change.
Yeah, and that should go to Pablo, just to reemphasize what we said on that last question. He's saying, but if each section has different padding, we just add different combo classes. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that's where you create the custom class for the padding on that one and use the global where you want the global styles to fit. So yeah, you don't have to worry about creating a custom class. That you can still do that. You just use the global stuff where it's supposed to be global, and then when you need it, you create the custom class.
Yep. And we're going to, in the new docs release, we're just explaining so much more based on all of the questions. And there is a whole page dedicated to when you use the global utilities and when you should use the custom. So we're coming out with this information. I'm following that spec now. It kind of says it in Clientfirst, but not as well as it should and not as direct as it should. So Pablo, we're coming out with more info on that. Okay, let's continue here. We're going to keep this as is. These are non-classed headings, which is what we want. Again, a non-class text block, that is what we want. We're going to remove this spacer here. And you know what? Let's go and, for fun, go apply our new margin classes here. We have our margin top, and we'll do a margin, let's say medium here. We can go and put our form block in here. You can do this. You can go and put this inside a spacing wrapper. You can also apply a custom class to this and apply that spacing directly to the element. That's okay. There's reasons why you would and wouldn't want to do that. How many pages does your site have? How many instances of the form block are there? Do you want spacing specific? Do you want instance specific spacing for this form block? Or do you want every form block on the entire site to have the exact same? So there's decisions. But we're using this here. This is part of Clientfirst spec. It saves us a potential class and any kind of custom spacing.
Then I'm
So
wondering
let's
if
go
we
through
even
here.
need that
Yeah.
class on the form block there, or what's that class doing?
You know what?
I
We
don't
may
remember
not.
what it's
That's
doing.
part of this cleanup.
Oh, it might have.
No,
Yeah, I don't even
I
know.
don't think we
It
need
does. I
it.
don't think it has anything in it absolute that needs it to be relative. Oh, the triangles maybe were relative to it, but it looks like those are, yeah, maybe hidden in your zoom level.
In CTA, we have our form. Looks like a Z index value. I'll guess that we need this.
I think it again might have been for those triangles that are floating underneath it to make sure that they're above those triangles so the triangle doesn't block the button. I think if you scroll down, there's like a little triangle next to the submit button on that form, and that's why the form had the relative set to it. Maybe not. It was maybe hidden because it's so narrow. I don't know.
Okay.
It must have been some reason I said it's a relative. Doggone it.
All right. Well, yeah, I have a relative here to catch anything that may be inside.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to.
Oh, but this is here. I see. There we go.
There it is. Yeah, see, that's where I had the Z index on the form there to set the triangles lower to the button.
Okay, I see. Where are we? Let's close. Let's get back in. And we'll give it to the Z index here. Ah, I see. We want to have this here. Main CTA form wrapper. With the intention of the relative. Great. So now we have this Z index 2. This is Z index 1. That should be behind. Great. Okay, let's continue renaming this. It seems like that's exactly what we're going to do here. Just give some renames. And I'm going to call this one a main CTA form row. No class here. Great. We can call this a main CTA text input.
Let me ask you, because this is the place where I get like on that flex thing. I guess that's like a utility. That's kind of like bringing a utility thing into the client first, right? Like, and so I get, putting it flex and making it part of that component, but now you have extra class versus like, is there something wrong with just if I know flex and I just need a basic flex, just using a utility in that place, and I just know everywhere this flex thing is, it's just going to be flex. And same thing with what was the other one that you just mentioned there? There was another one that you were just talking about that you pulled up that you were going to rename to class specific. And I'm just wondering, like the form input, like maybe I just want all my form inputs to look the same, even if it's on the CTA form. Is that just something you got to consider when you have a big site with lots of forms and you want all the inputs to look the same? Or, is it just you name it once because it's just a single component here?
Great question. I will start with the flex example. So you can do flex here. There's nothing wrong with it in terms of CSS. I'm going to go, I think it was just flex. No. Oh, I renamed it. Okay. It was flex, right? This is okay. And let's say it's on a whole bunch of other pages. It's creating this really beautiful thing on desktop. There are some instances that need to stay horizontal flex on tablet and mobile. There are some that do not need to stay horizontal on tablet and mobile. They need to go vertical. And there's one instance that needs to go vertical, but it needs to do space on both sides because of this new layout that has been established. As you can see, this can get very, very complex as we start making customizations down tree, down the responsive levels. So if you're using flex and you can guarantee this will be a true flex, this will never have to have any further customizations for mobile. The answer is yes, you absolutely can. For something like this, I would absolutely not do it because this is a form. this is going to need some customization. We're definitely not going to be able to do 2 columns on mobile, right? But who says that every other Flex class needs to follow that same thing?
Right.
So then you find yourself adding combo class,
Yep.
mobile tablet vertical, mobile horizontal vertical, mobile vertical vertical. And now you have this whole combo class system, which I just don't like using. I want the full flexibility of I can change this instantly without even looking at the stack classes. Does that answer the Flex side of it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer to the Flex side of it, actually, because I was thinking I get into that situation. I used to get into that situation all the time because I'd just be like, oh, Flex, that's easy. It's utility, just flex it. But then exactly like you're saying, you get to mobile and then you go, okay, well, Flex center or Flex left. Now and then like maybe you change it there, but you didn't realize that 3 other pages over here had the same Flex property, and now you just screwed up those designs while you cleaned up this design. I think that does become a good answer. And the second one was there was like another
the input.
Yeah, the input. Right.
Which I was going right into perfect timing. You have to make the decision: is this text input specific to this component, or is this a text input that will be shared across the project? That question is going to give us the answer that we need. So text input, this can be anywhere. This could be on your contact form. This could be on your email subscribe. I mean, it could be anywhere. And if text input is truly going to retain the same styles everywhere without a need for a combo class everywhere, you should put text input. It's keeping it unified.
Got it.
If there are changes across different instances, across different pages, just go with the combo class, because the combo class allows you to change it instantly. There's only 1 instance or 2 instances, and it's on the same page. So let's just make it really specific. It's for this. We don't have to worry. If I'm going in next year, I don't have to worry about it updating some other text input like with a very general name. And if we want some in between, we can also do this. So maybe there's most of the styles in my text input that need to be shared, right? Let's have like a background color and a radius and a placeholder color and a text color. All of these things we want to stay the same. But on this one, this whole thing is different. This is different. If these changes are just a little bit different and you really want to maintain those base styles that we've set in text input, right? Like we don't want to rewrite this every time, and we don't want to rewrite this, and we don't want to rewrite this. We want these to be our core global styles. It's not changing. Then I can go is main CTA. And now I can use this base class, inherit the most important styles, and then make this tiny change, 1 change, right, for the combo class.
Yeah, that's kind of what was happening there with the text input 1 and 2, or left and right, because I'm just kind of squaring them off so they butt up nicely to each other.
Sure.
So I was just trying to understand, like, what instance would you just use a flat text input, and that is it, right? Like you want a base text input, but then you need is left is probably the right move, or is right, because again, I might want to do that on another form where they're stacked side by side.
Sure.
That's where I get lost a little bit, is like I tend to lean heavier towards trying to keep things more global where possible, right? So even if I'm inside of a component, I'm still thinking like, okay, my form inputs, I probably want every form to look the same, so I want the input to just be a class. I don't necessarily want that to be tied to my component. I want to just, everywhere I need a form input, know that I can put text input or form input or whatever that class is. That's where
I do too.
And I don't know if that's if there's anything right or wrong about that,
No, that's absolutely right. And that's exactly what this is doing right here. So imagine we did this is left, right? We're going to update this to is left, but we can do text input is main CTA left, right? Imagine 20 different forms on the site. Now we have a really good reference as to what this is for. The problem with this is if you completely change it. So imagine we have 4, we have red, we have just a whole bunch of changes, right? It's like, it's not even the same thing. It's a totally different system. If there's no reason to inherit the text input, we shouldn't inherit the text input.
Right.
That's where a lot of people go wrong. They add the combo class on top of the base class, but when you don't need to inherit that base class, why are you building on top of it? Just start fresh. So these are all decisions you have to make as you're building. And right now, I know that we're taking like 10 minutes to talk about this, but once you get good at this, you can start making these decisions near instant.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask these questions to yourself very quickly. So let's move forward here. And now that I have this context into what this is for, and that let's intend that this can be used somewhere else on the project. Maybe we use this for a post-event follow-up. We can name this correctly. So I'm going to call this is left. We're going to keep this global. It doesn't have to be specific to this component. And this is right. And we have our nice text input. We're going to keep that just fine.
Yeah.
We can also,
I was going to say, and I think this would come down to like making sure you have a style guide when you're building. And if you know, like if you're just doing one thing, it doesn't matter, right? If it's going to be a global thing, because there's only one thing. But this is where like having that style guide and knowing, hey, this is going to be like, maybe we're going to have a bunch of forms, and someplace on the forms, there's going to be multiple instances where we're going to want inputs next to each other. And so then that would make sense to come up with that class that's a flex, but just for this like side-by-side form elements or something like that. And then, you know, having that global unity in those form inputs, even if you're inside of the component.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes there's no true right and wrong.
Right.
You know, don't sit there thinking about, well, what's the best way to do it here? If there isn't a big trade-off and they seem like very equal choices, just choose one and continue going. If you have to change it later, then next time you're better at handling that situation. But I could have done is main CTA left, is main CTA right. I could have done a custom class. The reason I defaulted to custom class is because of the size of the project. This is like such a tiny, it's a one-page landing page, super manageable. So I was just thinking it's specific.
Yeah.
But we keep it global. That's the right move for this.
Yeah, and I think that's always just in the back of my head. I just think everything's going to be huge, you know, and one day this is going to be like a bigger side, whatever, you know, like it's obviously not. But yeah, when I'm building, I'm always assuming I'm going to reuse a component, right? In my head, when I'm working with Webflow, I'm like, okay, is this something that there's potential use for? And so then I think I lean towards like a global. Whereas if it's like if it's a component thing, then I try to stick it in that. But again, I'm learning Clientfirst too as we go. You know, like I'm not technically Clientfirst certified. So Simon, you know, you got to come get me some.
Nice. Okay, we're looking pretty good here. We have our May CTA component. We have our global managed utility text class. Excellent. And this section is good. We don't need to do any more renaming on this side. Now let's go to this other side, the feature side. And let's go ahead and call this the main feature.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'll get Pablo Cortez. Yeah, I think just in relation to the conversation we're just having here. What if each section has different padding? Which just has different combo cladding. Yeah, and then wrapping up with I guess that's it's not updating the new. My comments aren't updating. That's weird that the comments dropped off like that again too. Okay, well the comments aren't working. But he said, I guess this is something that can be considered on the Figma file too, like before building Webflow. That's exactly it. If you're gonna, you know, when you're building like big projects, you got to have more consideration and more thought put into like the global structure of stuff. I think that's kind of what Joe's saying here is that when you're working on a little one pager, you know, you can go custom on almost everything because there's not a lot of reusability. But if you do know that, hey, this is going to be a project that scales, or maybe this is a landing page for something I'm building, you likely have that, you know, design or style system or style guide set up ahead of time so that you can understand like, okay, this needs to be global. This is something that is just for this one class.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just renamed this. So I was going to create a different component name, but that doesn't make sense. We're inside this main CTA. It totally works. So this is a main CTA feature wrapper and main CTA feature headshot. Easy, simple. I know it's in the main CTA. I can clearly tell that this is the feature wrapper, not the updates box. Cool. So we have a new, neat, and organized element here. And that's our second section. Any questions that we want to address before we continue? Do we want to continue? This is now a pretty long episode.
Yeah, I think people kind of get a feel. I have the same question for you there, and this goes back to exactly what we were just talking about. Like on these thumbnails, the reason I didn't do those components because I use the exact same class here, so you can see that the class now changed the main CTA feature headshot on these other classes. Because I was just like, I just want to do this once. I just want a thumbnail, and then maybe I think on the bottom there might even be a combo class with a dark border, or maybe not. I think that might have just been handled in design, like in the file itself. So again, it's just one of those questions about like reusability and like how you want to use the stuff.
Starting your planning in the Figma file is absolutely a good move. And what I would look for in this decision is, do I see this feature headshot throughout the site? Or is it really just specific to this page? Is it really just specific to this instance? If this feature headshot is everywhere in the project, and everywhere in the project we require 10 width with a 1 bottom, then absolutely go for it. That should be globally managed. But if we're only on this page, let's say the feature headshot doesn't come up, I'm probably going to give these each custom names. It's not enough time savings for me to create a global utility class for this if I only have it here and here. It's just going to limit what I can do here because it's a totally different section. This doesn't have the same... This just feels different to me, right? It's in a completely different section. So I hope that answers the question. The proper planning, knowing the project scope, understanding everything the project has is super important in these decisions. And also keep in mind, you're not going to always make the right decisions. We're talking about deep stuff here. This is like, it's Webflow theory. You're not going to make right decisions every single time. Sometimes you'll do something and go, wow, I should have went with the global class. Look what I've done here.
Can you check to see on the thumbnail next to like my picture there? Did I use the same style there with like a small, or no? Did it have a wrapper?
No.
The Rymar thumbnail.
Nope.
So there I created a custom because it's a smaller. But in other instances I've done like a thumbnail and I'd call this a thumbnail medium and versus a large or a small,
Yeah. And we have,
especially if I'm building like a marketplace and I know like I got to have people or with profiles, and on their profile they're going to have, one size, but then I want to reference that same picture somewhere else. Like that's when I think, you could have thumbnail with the combo and maybe just like the icons we talked about before. Maybe your thumbnail, becomes like a core. And that could be like if there's some specific styling that you, again, want to inherit on all of them. If there's a border that you're going to put on every single one of these thumbnails and you want it to make sure that every time you use a thumbnail, it's going to inherit that 2-pixel border or rounded edge on one side and squared off on the other, and you want every thumbnail to kind of inherit that, that's where then again you can use something global. But again, in an instance like this, you may just kind of be better off doing, custom for some of these things.
And we have an icon system, right? If the width and height of your icon is something that you want to manage on a global level, it's here for you. We recommend it. It's a great practice to have all of your icons at the same size.
You probably want to put it on I think it's relative to the container, to the wrapper around it, not the image itself.
Yeah. I'm not going to do it right now. But we have this available. This is something that you could do. What? It's
I'm
not it's
laughing at
not
it. I'm
bad.
laughing at a comment.
Oh, okay.
Eric, I appreciate your humor, Eric. Thank you. He's talking about I think we need to teach critical Webflow theory in schools, but it's a political joke we won't get into, but it's funny.
Yeah, I do think of it as a bit of theory. These decisions, they're not being made based on CSS practices. They're not being made on, um, yeah, just traditional web development. They're being made based on how Designer works, based on how you can access classes and how you can change classes and how you can control your build, what Designer gives us available in our toolkit.
Yeah.
And it may not be perfect, right? Client first, you're not going to build a site and like have zero doubts about it. But you're going to have a lot more structure and a lot more decisions, educated decisions, using client first than not using client first. So we're not looking for perfect 100%. We're looking at, I'm here and client first, and the strategies we use will get me to that next level of organization, of control, of style management. And that's how I like to look at it.
Yeah, Jay saying that actually took me the most to wrap my head around is that client first is a theory, not a set of rules. Really helped him for sure. Here's a good question from Eric. How do you name sections that are meant to be a template with no particular type of content? I've had that named A section or B section, makes for less typing. Is that fine? I think so, right?
Yeah. So, Eric, this is how we manage our wireframes, right? The wireframes it's all about layouts. It's all about just general structures, not super specific. So I think a layout 1, okay. Layout 1, layout 2, layout 3, layout 1A, 1B, 1C, depending on the size of that component. Now, when we release folder structures, when you have this class name, you're going to be able to copy it from one location, put it where it needs to go, and then rename it to exactly what you want in one click. So now you get to use the component with that general naming. And now once you put it in its final destination, it has the official name that you want it to have.
Nice.
Any questions?
That's it. Just Jeff saying, what's up? Joined 20 minutes late, but it's been super helpful. Thanks for joining. Yep. Thanks for joining.
Great.
These are the kind of videos that, they're not super exciting, probably right in the moment while we're live. But when you're digging into this stuff, when you're geeking out or you're learning Webflow, like probably most of the traffic on this is going to come like after, the stream happens. And so if you're watching in the future, and you're probably nerding out super deep on client first at this point, if you're watching, and hopefully this is helping people understand. I know it's helping me understand. And even if it's just to question it and say, hey, like that's cool, I appreciate some of it, but I still like how I do X. Okay, no big deal. Client first is not, like we just said, it's not like a strict naming system that has to be used a certain way. Now, if you want the responsiveness to work, the fluid responsiveness, well, then you need to work with REMs, right? And so that's important to then understand why and how REMs work, how they differ from pixels, why that's important to the client system or client first system overall. But yeah, the value here is that you can kind of piecemeal this together and blend it with what you're doing. And even if you just start adopting little bits of it, right? It'll start making your projects better, and hopefully you learn a little bit something, and then the next project gets a little bit better, and you just keep going. And that's it. That's that constant improvement, continuous iteration. Like that's what makes this business so powerful. This whole industry so powerful is that you could put something out and you get incrementally better over time, and next thing you know, that leads to exponential growth. And so you can do that with your Webflow skill set as well. Over time, you get better, you get stronger, you learn new tricks, you learn little hacks, you learn a little something from here, from there, and you put that all together, and hopefully you turn that into some kind of profit or career over time,
Right. And understanding these topics will help you better manage sites, work faster, understand your project better. And all of that is going to lead to more efficiency and just more overall growth, personally, professionally. I mean, it could be the difference of having 3 active clients versus having 6 active clients. If you're working twice as fast in your project, then you could take on double the clients. So yeah, this hour and 30 minutes may feel like a long time, but I want to think that you're going to earn that money, earn that time back.
Yeah.
That you're going to get that time back by the efficiency savings in your projects.
Well, and Han's saying, I for one am learning a lot. We're into it pretty deep. Might as well finish. Yeah, that's it. Like sometimes you got to go deep with this stuff, right? Sometimes it's not going to make immediate sense. Sometimes you have to, and that's just Webflow in general. That's like these styles, like Joe was saying, you're not always going to get it right off the first bat. Sometimes you just got to go. You make the decision, and then you realize later, like, oh shit, I need to modify this, or oh damn, I made this a custom class. But just like we changed that text input to a custom class, you could go back and change it to a global. So if you realize, oh shit, I'm going to reuse this form now, well, you go back and you maybe have to modify that and know that you're going to use it, assuming it's a truly global setup. And so you can make modifications and adjust, and you know, like that's again the flexibility here to just continuously evolve and build and grow and take something from a 1-page build and turn it into a 5-page build, and turn what was once, you know, some static stuff or some all custom classes into something a little more global. So Pablo's saying wireframes are important too. Don't skip them. It's part of the theory. Yeah, everybody's got their own design process, you know, and so whatever's good for you, wireframing, sketching things out, you know, building some low fidelity mock-ups, like high fidelity, like whatever, you know, like there's a whole process. So yeah, that varies from person to person. So Joe, what do you think here? DJ Forge is asking, does Clientfirst help prevent marketers like me from breaking things? Asking for a friend.
Well, it doesn't prevent you from breaking things, but it helps you not break things. We have in mind that you could break something, and in the planning and in the process of building this system, we have you in mind. We have the marketer that has super minimal knowledge in mind, and that's the core reason for our super clear naming convention, right? When you read a class, you can know this is for this. Yeah, maybe I lost out on a little global style and I had to do this 3 times instead of one globally managed thing. But now this marketer knows exactly what it is, and they can make that micro update. So it's never going to prevent, but we're trying to help you. And if you spend, let's say, a few hours looking into Clientfirst and your site is well built by your developer, I would like to think that you can do some pretty big updates to your site without breaking it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it'll at least allow you to jump in and get more familiar with the project without having to, like, you know, wrestle. Sometimes I would do that, especially my early days. Like I was scrappy with where I was getting work from, you know, and so like I was taking anything that would come. And sometimes clients would come with a Webflow site, and before I knew better, I'd be like, yeah, I can totally fix it. And then you get in there and you're like, holy shit, this thing is booby trapped real bad, y'all. Like real bad.
Yeah.
And I would just find myself something that should have been like a 5 or 10 minute fix took me an hour because I had to go rebuild a thing, you know? And so I was like, oh, no. So now I always, not now, like I don't take these projects, but I started like looking and saying like, nope, I got to look at the insides of this first. I got to look at the guts of this. How's it built? Right. And so that doesn't always mean that the Clientfirst site is going to make perfect sense to a new person or to somebody who's not familiar with Webflow. I think you still need to have a certain level of familiarity with the product, but it should make it easier to go through and see what somebody else was thinking or intending with the project, which again should help you as a designer or a marketer going in and making changes, you know, without the dev side. But again, if you start changing a bunch of stuff that's global, you know, you could break everything, you know, anyone can break that stuff. So.
Sure.
Yeah, Joseph, there you go.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that. Your guys' stream has taken my work to a whole new level. Totally appreciated. Yeah, thank you. I'm still learning, but the quality has totally improved.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Same to you, DJ Ford. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out. Jeff McAvoy, you sound like a pro tennis player. I don't know why, but you should, yeah, I don't know if you've considered that. I don't know if you're like 100% stuck in Webflow, but the name sounds like it's, you know, like it just... Jeff McAvoy with the ace, or I don't know, like it just, I feel like you could play tennis professionally. You should consider a career change. I'm just saying. But for sure, go back and watch from the beginning. Joe, any other thoughts? Any other wild, silly shit that we need to bring up for the folks today? We're already well over our set time.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'll say, keep trying. You're not going to be perfect. You can see that I'm ready to discuss all of these things right away because I've been studying this and building it for months. So if you're your first few months into Clientfirst, you just have a few builds, you're not going to be a pro at it. You may need 10 or 20 builds until you can make those decisions in real time. So be patient, keep learning, and we're going to keep growing it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hans is asking, will the Clientfirst documentation reflect the new folders, labeling conventions when folders unveiled? Yeah, we'll for sure update the documentation on that.
Oh yeah, we got big updates coming.
Yeah, big updates, and y'all don't even know. We're not like I wish y'all knew the things that are happening behind the scenes. There's so much good stuff. The next 6 months is going to be like bang, 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 bang. So just get ready for that, okay? That's all. Yeah, that's all I got to say.
That's true. Nice.
All right. Well, there we go. An hour and a half of Learn It Live. Hopefully that helps you understand a little bit about Clientfirst and what to consider when moving your site over to Clientfirst from, a potentially other build. And so, yeah, that's it. I got nothing else.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Joe and Rymar. This was Masterclass Pure Gold. Glad you appreciate it.
Nice.
Yeah.
This was from Hans. Hans on Tuesday asked us to do this 3 times. And we normally ignore comments that come in that are not related to the show topic. But, Hans was very persistent, and this is a common question.
Lots of people
Hans,
ask this.
I'm super glad you're here. Yeah, I'm super glad you're here and learning this with us.
Yeah, and we may even, this might be a good one to pull a couple little nuggets. There may be little sections when we were specific going through and like renaming some of those. That may be good just to highlight short clips. So yeah, maybe something to think about. But yeah, hopefully this helped. Again, on the Clientfirst side of things, good luck with everything you're working on. Good luck on all your client builds. Tune in on Tuesdays for growth episodes. So we usually learn about how to build the business on Tuesdays, and then on Thursdays we're learning about how to build with Webflow. So next week we're talking about client horror stories. So be sure to tune in. Let's see, that's this one. I don't have it up there. Yeah, client horror stories in the description. Share your client horror story with us. There's a video ask in the description of this video. Let's see, I can actually do this right here. Let's go here. Oh, nope, it's got to be this one, and I got to turn Joe's screen off. Yep, so we want to know all about your client horror stories. We're going to spend an hour talking about that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure there's going to be some silliness in that episode. So that's in the description, and we'll catch y'all later. Let's see. I need to be educated. I don't like the Clientfirst concept of div upon div upon div. What's wrong with combo classes? Dave, you got to go back and watch the episode. We talked a little bit about some of that stuff. We talked about combo classes and everything pretty thoroughly throughout the site. So go back and check out some of the early video. But that's it. We're going to bounce out on that. Catch y'all later. Bye.